Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Shirley Jackson's book, The Haunting of Hill House. Talk a little bit about the author, go into a summary of the plot, talk a little bit about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, talk about some recommendations for who I think should read the book, and we'll finish it off with what I'm going to be reading next time. So Shirley Jackson was a American author who was writing in the first half of primarily in the 20th century. She is primarily known as a horror author. She's written a couple of novels. The Haunting of Hill House is one of them. I listened to this book on audiobook. It was fairly short, so I don't know if it would be closer to a novel or a novella, but I believe she has written 2 novels, including The Haunting of Hill House. She's probably better known for her short work. She wrote the classic short story, The Lottery, which is a horror short story, which is pretty famous and pretty well anthologized. And she passed away in the 1960s. Stephen King and others have really cited her as an influence in their writing. So I hadn't read any other long-form works by her. I know she is also, her works have been adapted into movies as well, and I don't believe I have seen any of those. So The Haunting of Hill House is essentially a haunted house story. There are 4 main characters, and the novel follows the 4 main characters as they stay at the house and witness some of the supernatural activity that happens there. The main instigator of the story is a doctor who is investigating whether or not the house is in fact haunted, or if it can be explained by any kind of scientific reasoning. The main character of the book, however, is one of his assistants. He has 2 assistants who choose to stay with him at the house. Those 2, as well as a character named Luke, who is the relative of the owner of the house, or one of the owners of the house. And the book follows mainly one of the assistants. Her name is Eleanor, and most of the book happens from her perspective, her point of view on things. That's actually one of the things I liked the most about the book. It does a good job of showing things from Eleanor's perspective. Sometimes that can be problematic, but I think the way that Shirley Jackson does that, you do get into the character's head, and you do see things from her perspective there, which is nice, and I did enjoy that. The book, for the kind of serious subject matter, the book is at times very spooky. I wouldn't say that it's scary to the point of keeping you awake at night or anything like that. It's more of a spooky, scary. But it does definitely have passages that are a little eerie, a little frightening. It's also, in spite of all those things, there are some characters who are really funny. The doctor has a wife who comes and visits about 3/4 of the way through the book, and she's actually a very funny character. Eleanor is pretty funny, and the other character who is the other doctor's assistant, her name begins with a T, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but she's also a very funny character. Some of the things I didn't like about it as much, as funny as some of those characters are, there's also the character Luke is kind of set up as a romantic foil, I think, in some ways, and his character doesn't quite meet those expectations. He's a little annoying of a character. Like I said before, the book is relatively short. And I don't want to say the novel is pointless, but it ends in kind of an ambiguous manner that didn't really answer any questions, as many questions as I would have liked. Some people will find that ambiguous nature appealing. For this particular book, I didn't. I thought the writing style felt like it was written at an earlier time, definitely, and I think that also made it difficult for me to get into the book. I thought the premise of the book was interesting, but as I was going through it, it did feel, for such a short book, a little bit of a slog in the writing. Didn't really care for her writing style that much. So those are the kind of things that I liked and didn't like about the book. Who would I recommend the book to? I think if you're a fan of Shirley Jackson's earlier work and you really want to get into some of her long form stuff, this is maybe a good thing to check out. I would recommend, and I think too, it's probably a good novel for just students of the horror genre in general. I think it's interesting to see, the kind of works that was coming out during that time. I would recommend this to maybe older high school students or college students. I think it'd be good for that age group. I also think if you're a fan of this, you should definitely check out Shirley Jackson's short stuff. The Lottery is a great short story and is anthologized because it's wonderful. So if you haven't read that, you owe it to yourself to check that out. So pretty quick short review, a pretty quick novel. That I don't want to say that the novel overall was pointless, but I had kind of a hard time getting into it, and it just didn't necessarily land for me as much as I was hoping it would. And the next book I'm going to be reviewing is going to be Joe Hill's The Fireman. Also listening to that on audiobook. That should be coming out maybe next week. So until then, please feel free to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Also feel free to follow me on Twitter. Until next time, bye.